Hello, year two. Welcome back. This is the last lesson of our term before half term. So let's get straight into it. So, what have we taken away from the Crimean War? So, I don't mean what have we picked up and we've run off with. I mean, what have we learned from the Crimean War? Well, the Crimean War. So, we learned in the last lesson that diseases were the main killer in the Crimean War. It wasn't actually the combat, the fighting between the two sides. It was actually diseases that were killing off the most amount of people. And two of the main diseases that were the main contributors, so the main killers for the Crimean War on both sides, were diseases called cholera, which is what this one is, and typhoid, which is this one. Now, just to let you know, these pictures are taken through a microscope, so really, really tiny. You can't see them with your eyes. You have to use a special machine to be able to view them, okay? But I've made the pictures nice and big so you can see what the actual disease and the bad germs actually look like. So these diseases. So on this side, we've got cholera. So cholera was a disease that was found in unclean water. And when a soldier was to have a drink, this water would get him very unwell. They'd have stomach aches, they'd have diarrhea that could last for a few days, they'd potentially have vomiting, muscle cramps as well. So really horrible disease that you'd get in unclean water. Now you've got the other disease that was typhoid. Now typhoid is a bacterial infection that's due to a specific type of salmonella. Okay, now that's where you sometimes don't get your food properly cooked. So if you've ever had chicken, then you'd find salmonella if you don't fully cook the raw chicken. But some of these symptoms that it would cause would be fever or abdominal pains. So that's pains in your stomach. You'd get headaches or you'd get a rash, and it would spread by food or water that's contaminated by sewage. Okay, so both of these diseases have come from either something being unclean, whether that's water or food, and then the soldiers either eating or drinking it and then putting it in their body themselves. So these two diseases were very dangerous during the Crimean War, and they killed the majority due to how clean the environment was. Now we remember that Florence Nightingale arrived at the Scutari Hospital, and she realised that the Scutari Hospital was basically sitting on its own sewage, which means that the soldiers didn't have proper toilets, so they would either go outside or they'd go where they were, and the sewage was everywhere. That means it was very, very easy for that sewage to then get into clean water, and they'd then digest, or they'd then drink that water, and they'd make themselves unwell. They didn't know any better. They didn't realise that it was an issue. But Florence Nightingale and Mary Seacole knew about these diseases, especially Mary Seacole, because she'd been fighting against cholera in Jamaica quite a few years before the Crimean War. So she came there understanding what the disease was. But they both worked so hard to clean everywhere and to wash all the bedding and bandages. But we've also spoken about typhoid being in food. And this is why it was so important when Mary Seacole had the French cook, the famous French cook, as a visitor to the British hotel. And she understood how important it was to then give the right nutritional food and make sure it's cooked completely and very far away from anywhere else where there was unclean areas. So you've got cholera and typhoid at the bottom as the pictures, which were the ones that were the main contributors, okay? So these diseases today, well, today you wouldn't really find these diseases as common or killing anywhere near as many people. They are still around, you can still get these diseases, but they would not be anywhere near as common because of what we understand now. This is because all the hard work that the female nurses did during the Crimean War and understanding the importance of cleanliness. So all that work that Mary Seacole and Florence Nightingale did, they have taught us about how important it is to stay clean. And you can see here, over time, scientists have discovered what works against the diseases, and today we now have antibiotics, which are a very special type of medicine which fights against these diseases. And you can get these from the doctors in our NHS, and they help them make people better if they get the disease. So before, if you got this disease, you were very likely to die. If you were to get the disease today, the amount of medicine that is now available through the NHS means that you wouldn't really die. The chances of dying are very, very slim because of how fantastic the NHS are. But the most important thing is that these diseases don't affect anywhere near as many people because of how clean and sanitary, which means how very, very clean our water and food is today, meaning that we would be very, very unlikely to get these diseases because everywhere's super clean. You'd go to a toilet now, you wouldn't just go outside, so which means you wouldn't have chances of that sewage getting anywhere near food or water. Everything is filtered through, which means the water that comes out your tap has gone through so many filters it wouldn't go anywhere near sewage. And the other thing is your food, the supermarket food that we have today, is made to go through lots of different processes so that it's very clean when you buy it. So that means that these diseases today usually only affect the countries that are very poor and aren't able to put in those steps to make it super clean. Which means in a country like the United Kingdom, there's not a lot of chance of cholera and typhoid affecting people because of all the medicine and all the steps of how to make things clean that we put in. So our mini activity, this is the last thing that we're going to do for the term. We're going to end on a nice activity. It's just going to be, we're looking at everything that we've done in the Crimean War topic so far. So I'm just going to remind you what we've done. We've looked at Mary Seacole's life. We've looked at Florence Nightingale's life. We've looked at the two ladies' places of care, which was the Scutari Hospital and the British Hotel. We've looked at material testing, what was the best sort of bandages, why cotton was the best sort of bandage, why did they use cotton and not other materials that we find today. We've also looked at the importance of hand washing, and we've looked at the countries that were involved in the Crimean War, plus we've looked at the diseases that were involved in the Crimean War. So my challenge to you, the last challenge for this entire term for topic, is to write about what was your favourite lesson for this term, or something which you have found out which you didn't know before and you thought that was really, really interesting. Could you maybe write it down for me? Give me an example of why you thought it was so interesting. Maybe you could even draw a picture of the lesson that was involved. So if it was about Mary Seacole, you could even draw a picture of Mary Seacole next to it and something that was about her. Entirely up to you. I just look forward to seeing what you have enjoyed this term from Learning from Home. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you for taking part in all of these lessons. If you've missed any of the lessons, that's fine. They're still going to be on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and you can check them out. But thank you very much, year two. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.